Hi. Video games are cool, and I don't care what anybody has to say. I don't care what your Twitter page says. I don't care what your Instagram reel says. I don't care what your mom, your grandma, the goth girl that you follow on Instagram that doesn't know you exist, but you think you have a shot, so her thoughts are your thoughts because you're trying to morph yourself into the perfect dude for her, and she's like, video games are red flags in men, and you're like, video games are red flags in men, Fuck that. No, video games are cool. As a matter of fact, the gaming industry is the fastest growing and one of the most profitable businesses in the entire entertainment industry. I'm talking about music, I'm talking about movies. The gaming industry is one of the most profitable and the fastest growing business out of all of them. For example, Fortnite, a free-to-play game about cartoons shooting each other. Free to play. In 2020 made $5.8 billion. Billion. It's free to play. They made 5.8 billion off of cosmetics. All that to say, video games are cool, and the people that disagree with that sentence are very obviously hard-stuck bronze or silver, and we don't talk to those people anyway. But the games that I play, the games that really do it for me, are games with a little bit more zhuzh, a little bit more spice, right? And I'm talking about games with villains or bad guys that are so horrifying that they stick with you for years to come. And before we even get to the topic of this video, I want to address two different things. The first thing is that this is scary villains, not scary villains in horror games. What does that mean? That means that not all of the video game characters that I'm going to talk about today are from horror games. You see, in my eyes, there are two types of scary when you're talking about things like this. The first type is just horrifying. You look at their character rig and you get scary. They just look dysfunctional and disturbing and gory, and they're walking around like a person, I don't know, and they're just terrifying. They're scary to look at. And the second type of scary is the type of scary that this video is really revolving around. And that's the type of scary that you don't expect them to be there, yet they're there, and now that they're there, it ruins your life. So these villains aren't really scary in the traditional sense. Have you made your way over to the Patreon yet, where you can get all of my videos completely uncensored for free? Also, for as low as $1 a month, both here on YouTube and on Patreon, you can get completely exclusive videos at least once a month. You should make your way over to patreon.com and type in my name, SPOUKY, or Spooky, to find exclusive offers on Patreon and here as a membership opportunity on YouTube. Watch all of my videos completely uncensored, as well as exclusive videos made only for you, hiding in my closet. I hope you take your time and go out and check it out. It's a fun time. Also a great way to support this channel. Thank you. Anyway, for example, this is not one of the characters that I want to talk about, but it's an example. You're in Minecraft. You spend like a week building the most beautiful house that you can. You're in survival mode and you're really happy. You're standing back and you're looking at it, and then all of a sudden you hear fuck you. You see, there's nothing abhorrently scary about a creeper from Minecraft, but its presence is enough to horrify you to the point where you want to avoid it at all costs. That's not every single character in this video, but it is one of them, so I needed to address this. And the second thing I want to talk about is that this is not iconic villains. So you don't expect to see Pyramid Head, don't expect to see Mr. X, don't expect to see Albert Wesker. It's more evolving around enemies or villains that are minor antagonists to common enemies. Enemies and antagonists that are so profound in what they do that it stuck with me for years, because the villains I'm going to talk about are not new. They're not very old, but they're at least 10 to 12 years old, and one of them is even longer. So again, we're not talking about iconic villains. We're talking about the villains that played a minor point in the story, yet their point in the story was so impactful that it still rings a bell in my memory years and years later. The first villain we're going to talk about today is none other than the most terrifying villain in all of gaming. The most horrifying, feared, and disgusting creature in all of games. And of course, I'm talking about Call of Duty World at War Nocturne Teuton Zombies. I'm kidding, but you're gonna sit there and tell me, you're gonna lie straight to my face and tell me that the first time you ever loaded into Nocturne Teuton and you're looking out that window, overlooking the truck, the courtyard, and then the two holes in the walls, and you're sitting there with your pistol because you don't know what to do, and then you completely forget zombies can just go around, and you just get fucking clobbered, and then you hit start and you go down to quit, and then you just leave the game and eject the disc? You're telling me you didn't do that? You're gonna sit there and lie to my face and tell me you didn't do that? Okay. Okay, tough guy. Oh, we got a tough guy over here. Oh, I wasn't scared. You're a fucking liar is what you are. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day. You're walking along an abandoned road. You're blasting music from the 1940s from a radio on your wrist. And life is good. And then you see a man-bear dog thing running at you at Mach Jesus and swipes you so fast and so hard that you die. That is the first villain that I want to talk about, and the one that still gives me nightmares to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the Deathclaw from Fallout. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, first of all, bless your heart. Second of all, let me explain it to you so you can kind of get into the shoes of how terrifying this actually is. Fallout is a game that takes place 200 years after a nuclear war engulfs the world. In this game, you take control of a single person called the Lone Wanderer who left his place of safety. He was literally chased out, but that's beside the point. To look for your father in this literal nuclear wasteland inhabited by things called super mutants, other inhabitants, ghouls, mirelurks, crazy people that worship atom bombs, and of course, the Deathclaw. The main thing that makes Deathclaws so terrifying, two things, is the first thing is that they are not a special enemy. I mean, yeah, they're more concentrated in different parts of the map, but they are a common enemy. You see them a lot, and every time you're like, fuck. Oh, God. And the second thing is they move very fast, like very fast. They are the fastest enemy in the game, and they also hit hard as shit. They do 125 points of damage per hit. To give you an example of what that's like, imagine you're in a bar and you're getting just hammered with your boys or your girls, whatever. And some dude bumps into you and without looking, you just kind of throw an elbow and you hit him in the jaw, right? And he pushes you against the bar. So fight's on. It's going to happen. You turn around and it's just fucking John Jones standing there. That's what seeing a Deathclaw is like. It is terrifying. So Deathclaws are a race of genetically engineered reptilian creatures originating from experiments by the United States government to create superior battlefield soldiers capable of carrying out high-risk search and destroy missions in place of humans. In the wake of the Great War, the nuclear war, the one that happened 200 years before the events of Fallout 3, I'm talking about Fallout 3. If you're a Fallout 4 guy, okay, that's fine. If you're a Fallout New Vegas guy, no, you're not. You're just a Fallout New Vegas guy because your friends are. And if you're a Fallout 76 guy, you can go fuck yourself. In the wake of the Great War and their escape into the wild, the Deathclaw population exploded and evolved to become an apex predator in the post-nuclear ecosystem of the wasteland, appearing as a reoccurring threat throughout the Fallout series. On May 17th, 2242, about 25 years before the events of Fallout 3 take place, the first successful deployment of Deathclaw units under the Enclave control was carried out when they were sent into Vault 13 to cloak the presence of Enclave forces and their abduction of the dwellers within. Unbeknownst to their Enclave handlers, following their first combat test, the Deathclaws, having become far more intelligent than anyone could foresee, broke ties with their creators and sought to create a peaceful home in the old vault for themselves. The pack, led by Gruthar is a fucking crazy name. I am naming my child that. Gruthar, come over here. Did you do your homework? Yeah? Okay, go play with your brother, Conan, and your sister, Gorlok the Destroyer. Eventually developed a unique culture as the first known case of non-humanoid sentient beings in history. However, the pack's home and their enhanced intelligence were eventually discovered by the Enclave. Subsequently, an extermination squad led by Secret Service agent Frank Horrigan was dispatched into the vault and successfully wiped out the intelligent Deathclaws. Gorist and Zarn were the only survivors due to not being present in the vault. Later attempts by the East Coast Enclave to harness the Deathclaws for military purposes in the late 23rd century instead turned to use technology such as domestication units that would put predator species under their control more effectively. Even if you play Fallout, I can see how that can be a little challenging to understand, so let me explain a little more. You know Goddard from Jimmy Neutron? I know this is a fucking stretch, but listen, Goddard from Jimmy Neutron. You know on his head how there's like plasma and shit? Yeah, they put that thing on a fucking Deathclaw, and now they can control the Deathclaw. It's basically a fucking mind control thing for the Deathclaw. They made it for the Deathclaw to carry out military missions, which is insane. I don't want to get into the deep nitty gritty of the lore of the Deathclaw. I just wanted to talk about it because even to super experienced players such as myself or other people who've played countless hours of Fallout, seeing a Deathclaw still sends shivers down my spine. I absolutely am terrified of Deathclaws. We're going to move on now. Now, the second creature I want to talk about is from an actual horror game. It's one of my favorite horror games of all time. And it's also scary because I have, like, I don't want to say trauma, but, like, there's just a trope in horror that is my absolute not favorite that it follows to a T, and I fucking hate it. And that is Laura from The Evil Within. The plot, story, and setting of The Evil Within is extremely convoluted and confusing, so I'm going to go ahead and try and explain a little bit of it. Spoilers, big spoilers ahead if you plan on playing it, but it's been like 10 plus years now since it released, like 12 years. What are you doing? The entire game of The Evil Within takes place within the mind of a mentally disturbed patient named Ruben Victorino, or Ruvik for short. And since the entire game takes place within the mind of Ruvik, all of the main antagonists, or the antagonists for their specific chapters and stories, are manifestations and symbols of trauma that Ruvik went through throughout his life. And that goes for Laura, the fucking bitch I'm talking about right now. So in the lore of The Evil Within, Laura is Ruvik's sister. And the reason Laura looks the way that she does, and it's going to sound dumb, but give me a chance to explain, is because that's the last time Ruvik saw her. That is the only memory, or the last memory that she had, or he had, of Laura. Every single antagonist that you run across in The Evil Within is a manifestation of Ruvik's trauma, which is the reason why it engulfs everything, because he has so much hatred and rage and despair. That's the reason the world looks the way that it does in the game, because it's just a manifestation of what's happening in Ruvik's mind. That despair, that rage, that hatred, and that misery transfers over to every single memory that happens in The Evil Within, including Laura. Now, for those of you who caught what I said of that was the last time he saw Laura, his last memory of her, that's because Laura died protecting Ruvik, which is the reason why she is so ferocious in the game, is because her last act being alive was protecting Ruvik, which is why in the game she's trying to kill you way more sadistically and ferociously than any other character in the game, because she is trying to protect Ruvik. How did she die, you may ask? Let me tell you. As a child, Laura was very close to her little brother Ruben Victorino, and the two often played together. Although it is rarely mentioned in the storyline, she is mentioned by Ruvik, who, for example, comments that her favorite piece of clothing was a red dress. In the model viewer, it is stated that she was the only person who truly understood her brother. After the siblings' wealthy parents bought new land and a farm, Ruben Victorino and Laura were playing in a barn on the newly bought land. Two of the land's previous occupants are shown approaching the barn, discussing how they need to show the Victorinos who really owns the land. Though one of them notes hearing children outside, the other callously ignores it, and they all throw their torches to light the barn on fire. Panicking, the siblings find a small window on the top part of the barn. Laura helps her brother out the window, both of them burning at this time. Ruvik falls out of the window in flames, escaping the fire despite being heavily disfigured by the burns. However, Laura is unable to escape and she is left to die inside the barn, screaming as she burns alive. She is then seen falling backwards off the top floor of the middle of the barn. She seems to have passed out and become unconscious. Since the fire never reached the middle of the barn, she wasn't burnt any more than she already was. One of the Crimson Post articles located within the game says that Laura did not die from the barn fire, but she was badly wounded and left in a vegetative state. However, she eventually passed away. Another reason why I love The Evil Within is that there is a meaning behind everything. It's so fucking deep in its lore. It really took its time developing the story and the world of The Evil Within. We don't talk about The Evil Within 2 though. They could have done a lot better. That's all I'm going to say. You see, the reason why Laura is so terrifying to me specifically is because she follows a trope of horror that I have a love-hate relationship with. And that's the trope of the hair over the face. Like Kayako Saiki from The Grudge or Samara from The Ring. I hate that shit. It is so scary to me. I don't know why. Yeah, I do. It's because I got traumatized by those movies when I was a kid, but I hate it, but I love it. It's so cool, but I hate it. I mostly put Laura in this list because of the hair and how she is the most vicious character in the entire Evil Within franchise. But I also put her in here because she is one of the main reasons why Ruvik is as messed up as he is. Why the entire game of the Evil Within looks the way it does is because of Laura. And I think that's pretty cool. So we're going to move on to yet another character in the Evil Within. And his name is unofficially called Safehead and officially known as the Keeper. The Keeper is a tall, large-built humanoid clad in what looks to be butcher or slaughterhouse worker's attire, complete with tall rubber boots, gloves, and an apron. He has a safe for a head, thus Safehead, which is completely featureless on the inside save for a mass of pulsing flesh where a face should be. A metal basket is worn on his back, though he never seems to deposit or remove anything from it. His primary weapon is an oversized meat tenderizing hammer with a large spike on the side opposite the head, used to impale the victim through their head. In his other hand, he is most often seen holding a sack filled with the severed heads of his assumed victims. Spikes and broken orbital clasps. Orbital clasps? What are we fucking watching House right now? Why are you putting medical terminology into a fucking lore for a video game? Do better. Anyway, it's a surgical tool used for like lobotomies. So now you know. While he may seem more mundane compared to Ruvik's other cronies, relying mainly on brute strength in his attacks, he has the ability to transport to other safes by breaking his own neck. There are usually many spread throughout the area where he must be fought, allowing him to be virtually omnipresent and ensuring no place is safe. The visuals of repeated camera flickers and glitches along the pounding and scratching noises herald a Keeper's arrival. The reason I chose the Keeper or Safehead to be on this list is because fighting the Keeper or Safehead is one of the most heart-pounding and horrifying experiences that I've ever had in a horror game since. I have not had that experience fighting another boss in a horror game in almost 12 years now. That's how amazing his character design and his abilities are. Because you're fighting him in a meat locker with a bunch of cages to simulate small, tight hallways, and he's just walking at you like Jason Voorhees. Because like I said, he can teleport. He is literally omnipresent. If you are too far away from his character model, he'll stand there and just Ninja Gaiden himself, just snap his neck almost completely off, fall to the ground, and his body will just appear on another safe that's on the floor near you. And he'll just continue approaching you. It is such an off-putting experience to see. And as you're fighting him, he literally takes his hammer and starts hitting himself on the skull. And just the metallic clacking of just clink, clink, clink is just unnerving. I don't know how else to explain it. It's unnerving. And then, of course, when he does snap his neck and teleports, the whole screen glitches. So you know when he's doing it, but you're just like, oh my god, where the hell is he? Because you don't know where he's coming from at this point, and then you just get cleaved from the back. The Keeper was born from a combination of Ruvik's memory of the safe where he kept his research and his unbridled rage. The safe head represents the atrocities of Ruvik's past that he's trying to keep hidden, literally crushing anyone who comes near. So yeah, the symbol of safe head is because he has his research in a safe and that he's willing to protect it and protect his atrocities from anybody. So he's literally killing people to keep his secrets, the safe. Insane symbolism there. And the last villain that I want to talk about today is a villain that I've already talked about on this channel, but he is way too insane to not mention here. Eddie Gluskin from the Outlast Whistleblower DLC. If you haven't seen my video on the Outlast Whistleblower DLC, then the link to that video is down in the description below, or it's here in this card. I've never put a card in a video, but we're going to try it out now. It's right here. But without a doubt, out of any game that I have ever played, Eddie Gluskin is the most beautifully written, downright abhorrent, disturbing, disgusting villain. And he's not even a main antagonist. But like I said in the video, he's not a main antagonist, but he is because of what he does. So like I said, Eddie Gluskin is a character from the Outlast game, the original Outlast, but from the DLC of the original Outlast called Whistleblower. Now, before you even meet Eddie Gluskin, the game kind of gives you a taste of how dark and just disgusting and fucked up this part of the game is, as well as how mentally disturbed Eddie Gluskin is, by giving you a taste of what he is doing there in the asylum. Because before you meet Eddie, you come across his creation, which is a decapitated male giving birth to a decapitated human head, an adult human head, his own human head, holding the hand of another corpse. So I'm not going to do what I did in my Outlast video and explain Eddie Gluskin in his entirety. I'm just going to give you the spark notes and the most important information for why I included him in this list. The reason Eddie Gluskin is so well known, especially in the horror gaming community, is because his whole thing is he is looking for his perfect bride. However, he is looking for his perfect bride in the male ward of the hospital because he's in a mental hospital. How he's doing that is he's literally capturing male patients and making them female by giving them breast implants with guts and intestines and innards, and then using a table saw or a large knife to cut out genitals. And of course, the patients die in the process. So he strings them up on the basketball court, and there are literally hundreds of them up there. So if Eddie Gluskin was just kind of doing this because he was mentally disturbed, for example, he just wants a bride, so why not just make a bride out of the dudes by mutilating them? That would still be disturbing. It would still be fucked up, but it wouldn't have the same amount of oomph as Eddie Gluskin is written. Because the way he's written is he does all of these things for a reason. And it is insane the amount of effort they put into a character like Eddie Gluskin. He is a very deep character. All that is known about Eddie Gluskin's early life is that he was sexually abused by his father and uncle, who took photos of the incident. The event was a matter of medical and public record, and Gluskin wasn't even old enough to know it was wrong, just that it hurt. His father and uncle were eventually incarcerated. As a coping mechanism for his traumatically violent upbringing, Gluskin would claim that he was raised in a Leave It to Beaver home. Prior to being admitted to Mount Massive Asylum, Eddie was a misogynist and a serial killer who mutilated women. There are implications that his insanity stems from being sexually abused as a child. So there is a particular moment in the game, in his part of the game, where in order to escape Eddie, you need to jump out of the window. So when you jump out of the window, you land next to his medical records. The records basically say what I just said just now, except when you walk back into the asylum and you see all the bodies hanging from Eddie's failed attempts at making a bride, and they're hung up from the rafters, that the protagonist of the game, the person you're playing, Waylon Park, writes something in his journal. And it basically reads, Eddie is such a misogynist that he isn't creating women to marry them, he's creating women to murder them. So externally, Eddie believes he's making these women in order to have a perfect bride, live a perfect life, have a perfect family, but subconsciously and internally, he is such a raging misogynist that he is literally creating women out of men to murder them because they're women. Because he's in the male ward and there are no females in the male ward. So because there's no females, he has to make them just to kill them. That's insane work for a fucking DLC. I absolutely love Eddie Gluskin's character. That's pretty much all the characters I can think of right now. I'm sure that there are some obscure games that I've played that you guys are going to bring up to me, and I'm going to be like, oh my god, how did I forget that? It's because I'm dumb. It's not that I didn't think that they should be on the list. It's because I'm just dumb. Can I not just be dumb? I want to make more videos like these because they're just really fun. It's literally me working with 4 or 5 names and just talking. I absolutely love this kind of video and I want to do it more. So leave a comment of what other games or other topics I should talk about that I could do this with, because this is it. This is the best. I love this. If you like this kind of content, or you like horror or video games, horror movies, anything horror related without the oppressive atmosphere of an actual horror channel, because they're always trying to scare you for some reason, and you just want to learn about horror in a positive environment from a guy that thinks he's funny, you should consider subscribing. Like the video if you liked it, because it really helps with the channel, and if you don't like it, then please dislike the video and leave me alone. I don't need comments telling me how much you hated the video. I hate you. How about that? Anyway, if you got nothing else for me, I got nothing else for you. I will catch you guys all later. Bye.
Wait for me. Man, fuck you. I'll see you at work.
Whore! You all want to leave me? Is that it? You want to leave me? Fine. Go! You and the rest of these ungrateful sluts!
What?
One of these days you'll go to sleep on time. Don't worry.